Good afternoon, thanks for joining us here. This is going to be a little trip down memory lane. Just come to the recreation ground in Stowmarket, which is the town I live in. Meeting up with my friend Bob, who has appeared in a couple of videos before. And he grew up here. He was just reminiscing the other day, I think, about the sort of Christmas memories as you come towards the end of the school term or something. But meeting him down here by the cafe on the wreck, and he's going to take us on a little tour around town, remembering some old shops and locations that are not here anymore. I wouldn't remember them because I didn't grow up here, and I think it'll be interesting, just fascinating how things have changed over the years. So here we are at the recreation ground in Stowmarket, and as I just said, meeting my friend Bob, who has fortunately turned up.
And there's a dirty great lorry now going to come along right behind us and mess the whole thing up. A Freeman, this is your advert. Right, okay, well I'm Bob Hall. Some of you might know me from some previous videos, and today we're going to be walking around Stowmarket from the old secondary modern school where I was a little boy. Bit of a shame because the school has now been demolished. And oh, you look wonderful.
Well, I look wonderful.
Do you want to come and join
I'm
us?
expecting to see me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a rather nice young man who said hello to us and interrupted. So we had a lorry interrupted the video, and we've had a nice gentleman that is interrupted. Now we've got two dogs running around, but apart from that, everything is honky dory. So yes, this was the secondary modern school where I was a little boy, and in their wisdom, they've decided to put a load of houses on it. A beautiful building. Very old, and I think a lot of us thought that they might do something with the place and turn it into a community centre or something like that. Sadly no, and the houses are going up. My school, all very sad. So yeah, so the reason for why we're doing this today is I was talking to Don over one of our many coffees, and I was describing to him what Stowmarket was like in the late 50s, early 60s. Yeah, I am that old. And when I was at about probably about 8 or 9, possibly 10, that would have been late 50s, possibly just into 1960, and I was allowed to come out of school here and go down to the town at Christmas, usually about 2 weeks before Christmas, and buy all my Christmas shopping, all my presents for all my family and everything. And I used to so look forward to it because I loved Christmas and actually still do. And we're going to go round that route today and just have a look at one or two of the places. Some of them are not shops anymore, but we'll just point out some of those things from the late 50s.
Of course, while Bob was at school, I'm a lot younger than Bob, and obviously I was only just born in the late 50s, so
I'm saying nothing. Thinking back to my school, the danger children keep out probably been a good idea during that time. It's funny that this sign should be over this particular railing, because you might have seen in one of Don's previous videos when we were doing some walking classes, that when I was a little boy, someone whose name will remain nameless put my head through some railings, and here it is, and the railing is still bent. Can't see it much, but it's slightly bent. What is this? Sorry, this one here. Yeah. And smaller headwind. And the fire service had to be called out and extract my head from the railings. So
I bet you felt really good about it.
Not very Christmassy at the time, no. No. Right at the exact spot of the bent railing. Yeah, we're starting this little tour in Berry Street. and there are one or two shops here that I used to come to. Perhaps this to put this into context. My love of Christmas, it goes back so long, and I used to just love everything about it. And in probably one of the most loveliest things was the shop displays, and I tried to buy presents for everybody that I could afford at the time from just about every shop that I went to. And opposite here, which is now Stitch, was a bookshop, and it was owned by one of my uncle's brothers, Mr. Hedge, I think his name was, and it was just one of these bookshops. Again, as a youngster, you used to go in and there were books galore, and I just used to love it. And even at that time, I'm a great reader now, but I used to buy books for people. And of course, beside me here, if we can just move along a bit, and we'll move across, of course, it's now purely Pilates, but of course that was Simpson's toy shop, and just about every kid in the town went to Simpson's toy shop. Sadly that closed, but again it was another one of these shops where when you walk past, the Christmas display was absolutely wonderful. And I used to spend a great deal of time in there, as did most young people at the time. But as I say, that's two shops already that we've seen that sadly aren't here anymore. I'm sure they're wonderful places, but not like the 50s and the 60s. So opposite here, we've now got a beauty and health spa, but of course what that was in the 50s and 60s was the co-op building, and one side would be all of the groceries. And again at Christmas it just came alive, and just the one thing that really sticks out there in this particular co-op was when you bought your items, you took them to the counter, you gave them the money, it went into a slot and then went up whatever it was into an office, where somebody would give you the change, and it would come down again,
like
back to like a chute. Yeah, yeah, it was really wonderful watching that. You put because the thing, we had things like pennies and what have you in those days, and it really was quite lovely. And then the next shop along would have been the co-op butchery, and as on a Saturday morning, I used to have a butcher's round. The trouble is, it was with a trade bike, and a great big thing. Goodness knows how many joints of meat, and because I used to have to take them about a mile and a half, and as a young man, that was quite a difficult job. But there you go. And another place that I spent my Christmases, usually at about 5 o'clock in the morning, I did a paper round, and of course that was the paper shop across there. And I remember, I think the manager's name was Mr. Hayward, and I used to get there for about 5 to half past in the morning, help sort some of the papers and help in the shop for a little while. I'd then go off and do my paper round, and which got me back home about 7:30, 7:45. I'd then go to school. But again, that's gone now. It's now a cafe. No Christmas would be complete for me as a young lad, and then coming into the console where we are now, opposite St. Peter's and St. Mary's Church, and about here somewhere, and I'm not absolutely certain which one it was. Somebody, when they see this video, will pick up on it and say, "Oh yes, that was my grandfather," or something like that. But there was a second-hand shop here, and again, using the word sadly, my father was into Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra, Perry Como, Dean Martin, all of those ones, especially at Christmas. And my first records were 78s, and usually with Bing Crosby singing White Christmas or something like that. And I used to go into the second-hand shop here, and he used to gather up all of the old 78 needles for me, and I'd go in about once a month, and he'd have about 100 of the darn things. But I also used to buy Christmas presents from the second-hand shop, so I was tight then. But it's surprising what you would find in a second-hand shop there. Everything from cycles to whatever it was, and of course my 78 records, which for me were really important at the time. So here we are in St Peter's St Mary's Church, and it's a lovely time to come, as it always has been really, but we now have the Christmas Tree Festival. And not only that, we've also got the Auger's Cafe with the lovely Helen and her team. And there's Helen and the team. Right, okay. Moving round. Hello. And again, because this is a Christmas video, it's extremely relevant to me, because at that age I used to come here to the Sunday school, but probably the best time for me was Christmas, and the 9 carols and lesson service. And again, I was allowed to walk down the town and come to the service, and because at that time the church was absolutely packed for the service. You could hardly get a seat, and I remember that the vicar at the time was the Reverend Muxlow, and lovely man, and so the church was very, very vibrant. Because look, what we've got now under the Reverend Michael Eden is this wonderful display of Christmas trees. What could be more beautiful than that? And not only that, Don and myself can say that we actually helped to build the crib. Well, I don't know about actually helped. We were press gang by the vicar when we were having our breakfast.
Involved in helping Jesus, the baby Jesus, into the stable.
Exactly.
We have a stable relationship with the church now, and
so, unfortunately, we almost dropped the pieces of wood down onto the crib, but it's all very nice now, and we feel very proud to be part of that, don't we, Don?
And we'd just like to reassure people that no baby Jesus was harmed during the construction of the stable.
The said pieces of wood over the stable erected by Don and Bob, and the vicar, who had an electric screwdriver.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Jeff Marchant. I think.
Oh, Jeff Marchant was involved as well. There you go.
It was a team effort. So basically what happens at the Christmas Tree Festival is that various organisations and groups in the town and in the area have their allotted Christmas tree, and they decorate it. So each tree here represents a group or an organisation in the town. We've got one there, Old Newton Under Fives, Trinity CEVA Primary School, another preschool, Suffolk College, so all sorts of groups represented there.
Alright, I'm going to go into my old Stowmarket language now, boy. Everything's alright, and here we are in Stowmarket Town Centre, standing outside what used to be the Mikado Bar. Now, the Mikado Bar was one end of town, and there was another one up the other end of the town. So you had the mods down here and the rockers up there, and never the twain did meet. But this is where we used to come as young teenagers, and it was run by a lady called Mary Brett, I think it was. I might be wrong on that. Somebody again will correct me. But yeah, we all used to gather here in the evenings. We used to park our scooters down on the marketplace, and
So you were in the mods mods, obviously.
Oh, and the mods, yes, yes. The trouble is, I was on the sort of the cusps really, because the mod era was coming to an end, and we were going into flower power. So I had the green parka with a tiger tail, but I also had a flowery shirt and some flowers on my hair. Just an identity crisis really at the time. Didn't quite know which era to be in. You see,
I do imagine.
but the Mikado, wonderful place. A right old thing that was. Ramoldu. Right, okay, we're coming into sort of the town centre proper now, and which was the main reason for sort of doing this video, because me and Don were talking about how I used to love coming down and doing my Christmas shopping, and what a vibrant town centre Stowmarket was. Perhaps it is still now. It's easy to criticise, but in those days, especially the late 50s and 60s, there were just so many privately owned shops, and they were just absolutely wonderful. I will just say something about the Suffolk accent I put on back there. One has to remember that in those days we were Stowmarket boys and from Suffolk, and so we did speak like that. But it's a little bit difficult, because when I became a police officer and I went down to training school, I had that accent. I think they called me PC Manglewurzel, and I had to point out that Manglewurzel come from the West Country, but they didn't know. These metropolitan blokes didn't know anything about that. So gradually over the years, I suppose the accent changed, and it certainly it wasn't me trying to be posh, but as a police inspector, it was very difficult sort of giving a briefing, standing there and saying, "All right, my boys, here we go." And I suppose my Christmas shopping was mainly done in this area, because opposite here we've got Peacocks there now, and of course what was that? It was Woolworths, and everybody shopped in Woolworths. I think I could do most of my Christmas shopping in that store, even if it was just some bath salts from Auntie Molly, things like that. But it really was a wonderful store, and I think it was a bad day when they closed down. It sort of took the heart out of this town centre, I feel, and that's the same with the rest of it. And again, I'm not going to go into criticisms of planners and everything else, but the heart of Stowmarket was ripped out in the 60s, and unfortunately we're now sort of left with a situation where some of those beautiful places aren't with us anymore. Not only Woolworths, but a little further on was Cramhorns. What pets they didn't sell, well, it's nobody's business. But again, when you're looking at Christmas presents, everybody had cats and dogs, and so I used to go in there and just pick up little bags of treats, anything like that, which would go nicely as Christmas presents. So we're just going to wander a little bit further on now and just look at one or two other places where it's slightly different to what it was in the 50s and the 60s.
Oh, I love this.
Opposite side of the road here, and of course it's completely changed now. I used to go in and buy a few presents in the chemist shop there. I think it was Wilson. Somebody was probably going to put me wrong on some of this, but that's absolutely fine. But also beside here was Durrant's newsagent, and another lovely shop with loads and loads of little bits and pieces inside, and again one of the places that I would just go in as a young lad, have a little look round, probably buy a couple of little presents for people, and then move on to the next one, and that's where we're going to go now. Okay, so this particular area, a little bit further up again, it's got a special place in my heart. Right opposite here, there's a British Heart Foundation now. My memory was, I think, of a sweet shop, and I can't remember the name of the lady that ran it, but they just sold every kind of sweets. And my favourite at that time was Milkmaids, was it? Something like that. I can't remember what it was. Again, somebody will put me right on it. Then a little bit further up, before the URC church, there used to be another cinema, and again I can't remember what the name of it was. I think we used to call it the Flea Pit, but what it was called I don't know. But again, another cinema, a place where we used to go as youngsters, and it was knocked down like everything else in this particular area, which again was just another thing that perhaps could have been kept. But the biggest mistake in my view was the King's Head that used to be here. Went right back to I don't know, medieval times, I think. Such a history, and to think that wasn't kept and turned into something rather nice. I couldn't believe it when I came back to Stowmarket and it had been demolished. Sorry. Yeah, a sad end to a really old, lovely place. Yeah, okay, we've come a little bit further up. We've got Stowmarket stores here, and because I remember it as Juby's shop in the 50s and the 60s. And incredibly, Don has just pointed something out to me which I didn't know, and up on the roof there, it's still got a sign, Juby's. I think that's absolutely wonderful. All the years I've been here, and I didn't realise that, so well done, Don. That's absolutely fantastic. But Juby's is gone.
Juby's is gone. Sadly, that's all that's left of everything on the roof.
It's the top of the town now, and there's one place that sticks out here, and Bing Crosby comes into it again. That's really sad, isn't it? And Baldwin's used to be Hicks Electrical, as many people will know in the town. But the thing for me there is that they sold records in the days of 78s were going out, 45s and long players were coming in. And I remember coming in here on one of my Christmas shopping nights, and there it was, Christmas with Bing. And so I couldn't really afford it, but I just had to have the LP, so I bought that. And alongside that, there was another Christmas Carol LP, and you know what, I've still got both of them. Right, so one thing I did used to do, because we didn't have many cafes and things in Stowmarket at the time, but looking towards this monstrosity here, we used to have the arcade where there were shops, and at the end of that there was a cafeteria, and I remember I used to be taken in there by my mum and dad, and we used to have a cake and a cup of tea. Now it's funeral directors. But sticking out here it says Fox & Co. Jewellers, but of course in my day it was Mr. Dodge, in his jewels. So one thing hasn't changed, and that's good. We're going to move on towards the top of the town. We've moved up to the Royal Oak public house, but beside that here, where it says Maxwell Brown's and Age UK, and I've got to get my facts right here, but again, hopefully somebody will give me some indication as to what it was called. There was a little toy shop just here, a very small one, and again it was one of the shops that I always used to make for and buy loads and loads of little Christmas presents. And do you know what, I cannot remember the name of it. All I can remember really about this place was it was a Chinese restaurant above Maxwell Brown's here, but again, as I say, this is what these videos are all about. Some will go on Facebook, and Stowmarket people will come up and give us the answers, but I'd love to know what the name of that toy shop was. We're outside Chinese Checkers, but of course for me as an old mod, what did we buy here? Lambretta scooters, because this was Revets, and spent so much time in there basically because I had no idea about how to fix broken down scooters, and used to bring them to the guy that used to do it. And again, there was a fellow in there, he was so well known, he was so helpful, and I can't remember what his name was, but you just used to bring your scooter here, take it in, you go off, come back at the end of the day, and it would be repaired. And I bought three scooters in my day, yeah. An LI 150 and a GP 200. Oh, so we're in Milton Road now, and this is so many memories, this particular street. Again, I can't remember where everything was. There was a garage down here, but also there were some houses, and down here lived one of my friends, Trevor Harvey, who sadly left us some years ago, but I always remember we had a carol singing practice as youngsters down in his basement, and we decided that we would go carol singing for Crackerjack, I think it was, Leslie Crowther's Crackerjack. And one of the places that we went, about 6 of us, dressed as Arabs, would you believe, singing carols, was Stowmarket Police Station. And we all wandered in there, and the sergeant at the desk took one look at us, and we explained that we were collecting for charity and singing carols. And I must admit, they all turned round and put a few pennies in. Quite an experience, because many years later, obviously they had no idea at that time, nor did I, but I would end up as the Stowmarket police inspector.
That's amazing. That's so good.
Right, so we're in Stowmarket Street now. Looks completely different to what it was like in the 50s and the 60s. In fact, the road behind me leading to the bypass wasn't there at all. Where I'm standing now, there were 2 or 3 different shops, and one of them was, I think his name was Mr. Ted Ames, a grocery shop, I think it was, and that was in the corner here. But interestingly, as we move around the corner, we'll have a look at what was Girling's. Anyway, we come around the corner, and the creamy white building opposite, of course, was Girling's bakery and cake shop. Now, if you've ever tasted donuts, I can assure you, you've not tasted donuts like they made here. They were wonderful. And I used to have to come here on a Saturday morning, and I did my my rounds for my parents and my grandmother, who used to live at Stow Upland. And because one of the places I had to come was Girling's, and this great array of cakes and breads and everything else. You never see anything like it. The biggest problem was actually taking the donuts home and not eating them. But no, it was a wonderful shop, and I think probably one of the most beloved shops in Stowmarket at the time. So yeah, Girling's Bakery, just almost beside Girling's, on the corner of Regent Street. It's now a house, but of course that was the corner shop, and that's where many people in this particular area did their shopping. And because we used to come in here for sweets and goodness knows what else. Another shop that disappeared and is now a house. So we're nearly at the end of our little Christmassy tour, and I thought 1 or 2 of the places weren't totally related to Christmas, but one place I used to have to come every Saturday morning, and especially at Christmas, was what's now Bannister's, was Fuller's Bakery. And he had his ovens at the back of the premises, and he used to bake it, and you could be walking down the street, especially first thing, and you'd smell this bread baking, and it's absolutely wonderful. And I still haven't tasted a loaf of bread like it since. So yeah, dear old Mr. Fuller on Fuller's Bakery. And while we're in this area, almost opposite the old Fuller's shop, we were just into Bond Street, and it's got number 9 on there, and because I knew it as Bond Street Stores. And one of my schoolmates, Nicholas Huggins, used to live there, and I've actually been in there and had tea. But it was Bond Street Stores, sold everything, and now look at it. So we're nearly at the end of the tour, and I just remembered somewhere up here in Union Street, and because this building here, now a residence, did belong to the Meacham family, who moved up to Wolsey Road, and had all sorts of different bits and pieces in here, lots of groceries and things, but also, of course, fuel. And we've now got a car approaching us, so we're going to have to get off the road. And Mr. Meacham used to deliver paraffin and different groceries all over the place, all around in Stowmarket and in the villages. And one of the things that we used to get was paraffin.
Yeah, so thanks very much, Bob, for sharing those memories.
Okay, lovely. It's been really nice. It's a lovely day today, and what a lovely position we've got now with the Christmas tree in the background and the Christmas lights. So yeah, happy Christmas to everybody.
Yeah, happy Christmas. We're now off to Costa to get a coffee because it's blinking freezing. Do subscribe and like the channel and